Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Behm, and I'm the director for the Academy for Astrological Medicine, founded by Judith Hill. And I'm here with the wonderful Zoey Gong. Zoey is coming in from Shanghai, and she's staying up late for this, but I understand you're a bit of a night owl.
Yes, unfortunately.
Zoey is, she is the TCM chef. She's also a wellness coach and a dietitian as well, right, Zoey?
Yes, a registered dietitian.
So I have your book, by the way. I think I pre-ordered it when you were first advertising it because I followed your Instagram account, and I love all the information you share on traditional Chinese medicine. And a lot of people don't really know much about it. It's becoming more popularized now, I think, with folks like you who are actually, I think you're very pioneering in the sense that you've been doing this for years now. You started very young.
I did started pretty early. This is probably the 5th year or more even.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So you went to boarding school, and that's how you first came to the United States directly from Shanghai. Is that correct?
Yes. I was 16 when I went to the States. So
I went to boarding school, and that was my first experience with international students from China. And actually, my roommate was Korean. So it was funny because when you came to boarding school, you familiarized yourself with American food. When I went to boarding school, that's when I got immersed in Asian food. And
oh, wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah. And that's where I first tasted seaweed and all of these things that we typically don't grow up with here, at least not in a Dominican household, right? Like American food, and that's where I came from. But I wanted to invite you on so that people could know a little bit about your background story, since they're going to be learning from you. And I also wanted to say that Judith also has your book. I ordered it for her, and I told you she read it in like 3 days. And what she said is that it was her first time reading on traditional Chinese medicine, like an official book on it. And it felt so familiar, I guess, with the elements and having the background in astrology, that for her, it felt like she was remembering it. That's how complementary the science is to what we study for medical astrology. So please tell us a little bit more about how you got here and some of the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. So I, as I mentioned, I went to the States when I was 16. And honestly, the American food gave me a lot of issues. I started to have a lot of, health issues, joint pain, stomach issues, allergies. And I just didn't feel good. I was 16 and I was having skin rash all the time. In a year, I had a breast tumor coming out, which is crazy, right? And I was really stressed at that time. And I think when I had the tumor, when I felt it in my breast, was when I felt like, okay, this is the time when I really need to look into what's happening. So I went to the doctors, and what doctors will say. They will be like, they give you the hormones, they give you birth control and all those things. But I grew up in a very traditional Chinese family. So my mom and grandma was like, no, you cannot be on birth control all your life. We need to take you to a Chinese medicine practitioner. So I went to the Chinese medicine practitioner, and then I also paid attention to food. So the first magical change that food brought me was just simply cutting out dairy. Because I was just reading online as a teenager. I was like, what can make my skin rash go away? And a lot of the articles will say, don't drink milk. So I just tried it. And just within 3 weeks, all my rashes were gone. Wow. Even, the acne I used to have, since I was like 12, 13, were gone as well. So actually, I always had allergy to dairy, but I did not know. Until, all these things started to happen, I realized, oh my God, all the stomach issues that I had as a child, it was not me. It was just the dairy. And then at that moment, I realized, okay, food is really powerful. And then at the same time, the Chinese medicine doctors also helped me so much with my women's health issues. I wasn't having my period for maybe 2 years. I was just on birth control. And it's really bad if I don't have birth control, I just don't have my period. And, I went to a Chinese medicine doctor, and just in about 3 months, my period just came back. It's still pretty regular, until now.
Even with birth control, your period was able to come back, or did your doctor help you wean off of it?
Wean off completely without birth control. Yeah, just in 3 weeks with acupuncture and herbs. And I still remember the first time I had acupuncture was such, interesting feeling. You don't get this kind of, how do you call it, like a interesting stimulation anywhere else. And I thought it was very, very interesting. And then at the same time, I got into herbs. Rather than drinking the decoctions, I started to kind of make herbal teas myself. And I just really loved it. I think I got into it really easily, maybe because I was just meant to do that. So I felt like it was really easy for me to get into it. And then fast forward, because of all these things happened, I decided to study food when I went to college. So I studied nutrition first, and then Chinese medicine. And that's how I got here.
Now, you studied nutrition and you consider yourself a dietitian. Is that different than a nutritionist, or are they interchangeable? Is it the same thing, or is it different?
So it's pretty much the same thing. So the official term, right, is registered dietitian, where you can, work in hospitals and get insurance or whatever. But nutritionist is just like a not so official name. But nowadays it's the same, I would say. Yeah.
So what I love about the way that you approach nutrition and food is that you use it to complement your modern life. You're not trying to go back and say, we need to live a simple life where we do this, and we only do this, and we only have hot liquids. You do a really great job of incorporating on how easy it could be just in your everyday life. I remember you had in one of your stories, I don't know if it was a story or if it was a post, but it was so interesting to me. You were out clubbing in Shanghai and you were taking TCM shots in the club, in between some of the other shots that you had. And you were like, this is going to prevent hangover. You can still enjoy the benefits of traditional Chinese medicine and not have to live the life of a monk, essentially.
Exactly. That's exactly what I want to tell people, because people have this assumption that if you want to, use Chinese medicine in your life, you have to be very zen, you have to just sleep early every day and eat very, very healthy, have herbs, get acupuncture, do yoga, do meditation. But that's not sustainable for most people, I will say, especially younger people, my peers who also want to get into Chinese medicine. It's kind of impossible to tell them, hey, you can go out, you can have a drink with your friends. And I think the best way, at least for me, is to balance things out. Harm reduction, right? Yeah. And when you can balance it out, it actually works perfectly. You can still live the lifestyle that you prefer, but at the same time, be healthier, than, otherwise, right? If you don't use all these kind of balancing modalities, balancing tools, then you might get sick really easily.
Yeah, and you find good ways of incorporating, but also you teach us that Chinese culture has had easy ways of incorporating this. It's not just, yes, you are innovative, but you're actually just sharing information that has been passed down for generations. And I love that, because you also recently had another post. Sorry, I'm a huge fan because I just think all your stuff is like so
thank you.
But you had a post where you were somewhere where you didn't have a tub, and you were like, I ordered this tub on Amazon, and you showed people how they can open up the tub and give themselves a bath. So many times people make excuses for why they can't do things like self-care and give themselves the therapeutic treatments that they need. But it's really about thinking outside of the box and working with what you have available. So like luckily today's tools have given us, things to be a little bit more innovative about how we approach wellness. And you're just like showing it front and center. And I love that. I even showed it
thank you.
I showed it to my friend. She was like, oh, I don't have a tub. I was like, let me show you this. I was like, look what she did.
I know, if you want to do it, there are ways.
You mentioned that that you also understood some astrology because it's very complementary to traditional Chinese medicine. Can you tell people a little bit about why that's the case?
Yeah, of course. In the very beginning of Chinese medicine, the doctors were also in Chinese culture. There's also our own astrology. I would say, look at the stars, and we call it also bazi, right? When people was born, where the stars are aligned. I think in all cultures, it's a shared thing. And so in Chinese culture, it's really big actually back then. So the doctors will refer to that first, in the very beginning of Chinese medicine, and then they will look at the person, their physical symptoms. So, in that way, it's very complementary to medical astrology. And also, even nowadays, actually, Chinese people still do that. They will go see their bazi, which pretty much means astrology in Chinese sense. And then I will tell them during which what age they will probably more likely to have what kind of disease, or just in their life, they need to pay attention to which organ meridians in their body. It is very, very complementary.
Yeah, and it's complementary not just with how it's practiced, but also with the elements, with the temperature,
exactly.
Right? This is drying, this is moistening, and then also like working with the seasons. Traditional Chinese medicine, you work so much with the seasons, knowing what your natural, season or disposition is, and then seeing how that plays off with what's happening around.
Yes, exactly. So it's pretty magical, I wish modern science has considered more of that in the hospitals, but we're not there yet, unfortunately.
So is there anything, as we wrap up, is there anything that you want to share with listeners about your talk or about traditional Chinese medicine that they may not already know?
Sure. Yeah, I guess about my talk, it will be, it's one of my favorite classes to teach. So it's a traditional Chinese medicine 101, and it focuses on food therapy. So if, you want to know how we see food in a Chinese medicine sense, and how you should eat based on the thermal nature, the energetics of the food, this class will be perfect. It'll give you all the basics that you would need to know. And I guess in terms of Chinese medicine, it's a huge umbrella, right? People think about Chinese medicine, a lot of people think maybe it's the herbs, but it's acupuncture, gua sha, qigong, tai chi, food therapy all together. And most importantly, it's actually a way of living. And it's very flexible. It's a very flexible way of living. It never says no to most things. It teaches you to balance it out. So if you think it's a very difficult thing to get into, a lot of people tell me, I don't know how to start. I love Chinese medicine, but I don't know where to start at all. It seems so daunting, right? Because the herbs, I don't know the names. I've never had those. Seems bitter. But actually, no, Chinese medicine is very intuitive.
Yes.
And it's very much about your own body. It teaches you how to be aware of your body, and teaches you how to make sure your body and your environment is aligned. So we say the qi within and the qi in the environment should flow together. And this is how you holistically feel better. So I want to tell everybody, don't be afraid to get into Chinese medicine. Once you start learning the basics, it really just makes sense.
You're right. It makes so much sense. People separate Chinese knowledge into like the local fast food Chinese takeout, which is nothing like real food in China. And then they're like traditional Chinese medicine, and it's so different than the takeout that they're not interlapping it. But actually, if you have real, genuine Chinese food, and I would say for someone who's never experienced it, the closest thing that you would get here in the United States is dim sum. If you have dim sum, that's a little bit closer to how your culture approaches traditional Chinese medicine. There's steamed vegetables. There's like all these types of herbs and aromatics. There's all those flavors, all those umami flavors, all of the mushrooms. It is just a wonderful way to start really coming into contact with how delicious that system of medicine can actually be.
Exactly. And another example, we're in autumn, right? The Starbucks, you can see all the pumpkin spice items. All the pumpkin spice, all the spices in there are all Chinese medicine ingredients as well. And it's actually fit this season because it's aromatic. It belongs to metal element, which is autumn. So you can see Chinese medicine can be applied to many different cultures and has similarities with many different healing practices across different cultures as well.
Absolutely. Well, Zoey, you're awesome. I just think that you're the coolest. You're one of the coolest people I've ever had the pleasure of speaking to.
Oh, thank you.
I have to give it up to you for what you've done for the system of study itself, how you're expanding it. And I'm hoping through your talk with our academy, we're going to continue passing that baton on for you. So thank you so much. And we're so looking forward to you teaching our the TCM 101 class for our students. So thank you, Zoey.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melissa.
All right.